There you go.
I will call to order this hearing of March 27, 2025 in the matter of Z0037-25. Yeah. My name is Joe Turner. I'm the county's hearings officer. I'll start with some brief announcements and a summary of the process so everyone understands how you can participate in the hearing today. I start by saying I'm not a county employee. I am licensed as an attorney and trained as a planner. I serve under contract to the Board of Commissioners. I say that so you know you're getting a somewhat independent review of the application before me today. My role as the hearings officer is to conduct public hearings and make decisions about certain land use matters in Clackamas County. In making those decisions, I'm required to apply the county's existing laws. I'm not a policymaker. I don't have the authority to vary from or change the laws. If you think that the laws need to be changed, you can work with Planning Commission and Board of Commissioners to do that. But state law requires that this application be judged based on the laws in effect when the application was filed. As a hearings officer, I'm to provide an unbiased decision maker. I believe I am unbiased with regard to this application. I have not had any pre-hearing contact with any of the parties regarding the substance of the application, and I don't have any interest in the subject property or any of the surrounding properties. But anyone has the right to challenge my impartiality, argue that I'm biased in one way or another, and you can do that when it's your opportunity to testify. Procedure will follow. I'll start by asking staff to summarize their staff report, copies of which are available on the county's website. Then the applicant will have the opportunity to present their proposal and respond to the staff report. Then if anybody else wants to say anything about the application in support, in opposition, or with questions or concerns, they may do so. Once everyone's had an initial opportunity to testify, I'll give staff and the applicant alone the opportunity to respond to the testimony that was offered. If those responses include any new evidence, I'll give everyone a chance to respond to the new evidence. Otherwise, I'll close the public portion of the hearing and announce what I'm going to do. Generally, I will issue a written decision within about 2 weeks after the close of the public record. I'll send my decision to the county, and the county will send it to parties of record. So anybody who testifies orally or in writing before the close of the hearing will be sure and receive a copy of my decision. And if you decide you don't need to testify but would like to get a copy of my decision, you can contact Ms. Fields and she'll put you on the mailing list. Anyone with an interest in this application may offer relevant oral or written testimony, but testimony must be relevant to the applicable approval criteria, which are set out in the staff report. Also, please don't repeat testimony offered by yourself or earlier witnesses. This isn't a popularity contest. Whether everybody loves it or everybody hates it is not an issue I get to consider. The only issue before me is whether the application does or does not comply with the applicable approval criteria. However, it's also important that all parties make their best case to me. My decisions are final for purposes of the county, but may be appealed to the Land Use Board of Appeals, or LUBA. However, LUBA generally will not allow new testimony and evidence on appeal. They'll decide any appeal based on the record before me. So if you feel it's important that myself or any future decision maker knows something about this application, you need to make sure it gets into the record before me. In order to raise an issue on appeal, in order to appeal my decision, you or someone expressly representing you must testify orally or in writing before the close of the record. And in order to raise an issue on appeal, someone must have raised that issue before me with enough specificity that people can understand what that issue is. And if the applicant wants to object to any conditions of approval on constitutional grounds, they must raise those issues before me as well. If you feel you need more time to prepare, you can ask me to hold the record open or continue the hearing. If I hold the record open, you'll have an opportunity to submit additional written testimony and evidence before I make a decision. If I continue the hearing, we'll come back and do this again at a later date. But whether or not the hearing is continued or the record is held open for any other purpose, state law requires that I hold the record open for an additional week for the applicant alone to submit a final written argument without any new evidence. The applicant can waive that right if they choose, But if anybody else wants me to hold the record open for any other purpose, or anybody wants me to continue the hearing, you must make that request before the close of the hearing today. When you testify, please begin by stating your name and your full mailing address. Please spell your last name so I get it right. And if you represent someone else, please say so. That concludes my introductions. Staff will give us a quick overview of the technical issues with the Zoom platform, how you can indicate your desire to testify, etc. And then go ahead and summarize their staff report. Ms. Fields.
This public hearing will be conducted virtually using the Zoom platform. Panelists for today's hearing, which include the hearings officer, county staff, and the applicant, have both audio and video capability. Audience members who have joined the meeting will have their mics muted unless they wish to testify, in which case they will be called upon to do so by the county staff moderator. Audience members' video will not be turned on at any time. Today's hearing is being recorded as required by law. The county will make every effort to post the recording on the county website later today. There will be a designated time during the hearing when it will be open for testimony. The hearings officer will make it clear when this is. If you want to provide testimony, you will utilize the raise hand feature. On iPad or PC, attendees will likely have a raise hand button on the Zoom bar located at the top or the bottom of the device. When the moderator switches you over to provide testimony, your screen will look different for a little while. Primarily, you will see all participants' cameras, not just the one who is speaking. Staff will call upon you when it is time for you to provide testimony. Be sure to provide your name and mailing address when you begin. Once you have provided your testimony, your mic will be muted and your screen will be returned to normal. If the record is left open at the end of this hearing and you wish to submit additional written testimony, email written testimony to myself, Joy Fields, at jfields@clackamas.us. That's J for Joy, Fields like the soccer fields, at clackamas.us. Or you can mail your testimony to Clackamas County Planning and Zoning Division, located at 150 Beaver Creek Road, Oregon City, Oregon, 97045. The staff contact email address is also available on the web page where you found the Zoom link for today's hearing. I have taken over this application from a previous another planner, and so be sure to email your correspondence to myself. Testimony must be received by 4 p.m. on the day the record closes. People who testify and provide their mailing address will receive a copy of the hearings officer's written decision. If you do not wish to testify but would like to receive the decision, you must provide your email or standard mailing address by emailing it to the staff contact or by entering it in the Zoom chat function during the hearing. With that, I will begin to summarize my staff report. As the hearings officer mentioned, we are here today for file Z0037-25. It is for a new telecommunication tower that is proposed by Harmony Towers to be 154 feet. I say 154 feet because the tower structure itself is 152, but the antennas go up to 154. It is a tall self-support tower that is being proposed. The equipment cabinets and generator are placed at grade, surrounded by a site obscuring chain link fence within a 50 by 50 foot leased area. I would like to note that during the staff report, you may find additional information that's not in the staff report online because we received additional testimony late last night. And I wanted to incorporate that important input into today's presentation. The testimony received last night was from a member of the Mount Hood corridor who is in favor of the application, but would like to make sure that the emergency generator has enough fuel to operate for 14 days during a power outages or during a power outage. The Mount Hood Community Corridor experiences power outages when there's large storms and PGE shuts off the power. And so to ensure that people have necessary communication during these power outages, the Mount Hood corridor would benefit from having a generator and cell service that could last up to 14 days. There is testimony that was questioning the access. The access proposed by the cell tower is using a county road that has not been maintained by the county. But it is designated as a county road and is identified on surveys and in the county record. There was a member of the public who provided testimony with concerns about fire impact, noise, the need for an additional tower, and how we enforce fuel-free brake compliance. With that, I will go into items that you would likely have seen in the staff report. And that is that the subject property is about 38 acres. It's between 38 and 39 acres, and it is zoned timber. The tower is proposed in the southeastern part of the property. And in the timber zoning district, telecommunication towers are a conditional use. The property does have steep slopes and an unnamed waterway on it. The location of the tower in the southeast avoids those steep slopes. Any potential habitat issues with water resources, and there's no known landslides in that vicinity. The size and environmental overlays of the site made staff think that the property is suitable for the proposed use. And the county road, or the unmaintained county road, will not require concurrency standards because it's a telecommunication tower with few trips. The staff report found that the 50-foot by 50-foot compound does not substantially limit other properties or other uses. And I want to make note that if the presence of a fuel tank to power the generator requires additional compound size, staff find that increasing the size to 75 by 75 would also not substantially limit other properties. I have not heard from the applicant regarding this. This is not being proposed, but if the condition of approval for a fuel tank would require additional compound size, staff would not be against that. So I just wanted to be on the record for that. The photo simulations submitted by the applicant show before and after pictures. Looking west from the county road, you see that the applicant proposes some evergreen trees and privacy slats in the gate of the compound. Looking northwest, the tower has existing trees around it. From the property to the south, looking north, the tower is obscured by existing trees based on their photo simulations. The applicant did address the comprehensive plan policies and goals, and staff found that they comply with the comprehensive plan and goals as required by a conditional use. Section 835 of our zoning code has requirements for telecommunication towers. One of which is that no existing towers could be available for co-location. The applicant submitted evidence that there's no towers within 1.2 miles or 2 kilometers of the proposed location, and that the tower will be designed to be structurally sound enough to add additional carriers with co-location. The applicant is proposing 9 antennas. And with the additional location for co-location, the tower has the ability to support more than 12 antennas as the code requires. .835 of our zoning code requires that the landscape screening reflect the natural vegetation of the area. And there was some conflicting information in the application. It appeared based on the site plan provided in sheet LS-1 that there are existing trees suitable to provide the screening and landscaping requirement on all but the east side of the application or of the tower. However, the narrative noted sheet L1, and I was unable to find sheet L1. I found sheet LS1, but not L1. So there may be additional information that the applicant intended for me to have that I was not able to see. And that is supported by the photo simulation that we looked at that included evergreens around the fence compound. Because those evergreen plantings were not identified in the site plan. And so I think there's additional information that the applicant is proposing that I did not have access to. However, in the timber zoning district, the county is supposed to review applications for farm and forest impacts as well as fire danger. And the applicant noted that the location in the southeastern part of the property does not impair the remaining area of the property from being logged and does not impair or increase the cost of farm and forest practices in the area. Also, with a condition of approval ensuring fuel-free break areas around the structures proposed in this application and the fire turnaround that is proposed, staff do not find that the proposed use would increase fire risk for the area, for the vicinity, or for fire personnel. This is the site plan that was in LS1. And this is what I was referring to as showing that there's existing trees that will remain that will block the proposed use substantially as shown in the photo simulations. There are no existing proposed trees shown south of the turnaround. So this would be a modification from what I said in the staff report. I identified in the staff report that east of the compound, there may need to be additional trees. I am now concerned about the presence of trees south of the turnaround as well, to make sure that the photo simulation that was provided is continued to be met even once the turnaround is installed. But that is fixable with a landscaping plan showing the presence of additional plantings to obscure the view of the tower from the south and the east looking towards the compound. So no lighting was proposed. And the applicant provided documentation from the FAA that no lighting is needed for air navigation safety. They provided a statement of feasibility showing that erosion control is feasible. The transportation and engineering program provided details on roads and road improvements that would be necessary to meet the roadway design standards. There is not anticipated to be any trash or recycling enclosures required for this use because of the infrequent staffing that is required for cell towers. Therefore, with all of that, staff recommended approval because the applicant provided evidence that the criteria is met or can be met with conditions of approval. As I noted, with the concern for telecommunication service during power outages, I would like the hearings officer and the applicant to consider whether they would be okay with a condition of approval requiring a fuel tank to power the generator for at least 14 days. And as I noted, staff would be okay with increasing the compound size if necessary to accommodate a larger fuel tank to support the power generator. If you would like to provide testimony or request a copy of the decision, my email is on this screen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fields. You know, the additional testimony was received last night. Is that on the county's website now?
It will be
Okay.
shortly after this hearing. Yes.
Okay, because I hadn't seen it yet. I just want to be sure I got a chance to review it.
Yes.
You noted that the access road is a county road, but it's not county maintained. Is it existing? Is it built, or is it just right of way?
There was debate among staff whether it was right of way or built. Aerial images show that there is a road that serves property north of the tower location, but may have additional information from the applicant's perspective of what is on the ground.
Okay. Assuming it's not, is the applicant required to ensure that it meets a minimum standard? And what is that minimum standard? I assume it's
12 feet gravel,
okay.
if I remember correctly from engineers.
Is that in the conditions? Don't recall that, but it's probably there.
I think I included the conditions recommended by the Transportation and Engineering Program. They did have a condition of approval for the fire department to approve the turnaround and the access. And so that should be in the written staff report.
Okay. Yeah, the transportation conditions are clearly there. I just didn't go through them all yet.
Okay.
Just in regard to that issue. And I was wondering if an additional condition is necessary for the screening you noted to the south, but the way the condition is written, it seems it's fairly broad. So just that they provide a landscape plan that complies. So I don't think any additional finding, or excuse me, additional condition is necessary. Thank you. That's the only questions I had. Mr. Unger?
Good morning. My name is Mike Unger. My last name is Unger. My address is 5200 Southwest Meadows Road, Suite 150, Lake Oswego, Oregon, zip code 97035. I have had a chance to review staff's report and conditions of approval, and I do not object to any of the conditions that are proposed in the staff report. I will note one question you raised, Mr. Turner, that there is a condition from staff requiring a 12-foot gravel driveway. So Mogel Road will be improved as a part of that. In addition, staff is requiring that we improve an apron onto Wildcat Mountain Drive from Motel Road and ensure proper visual site clearance. And we will meet those requirements. Taking a step back quickly, the applicant for this is Harmony Towers. They are a build-to-suit tower company. Verizon Wireless is the anchor tenant. So Verizon will be the carrier that is locating on the tower. And then Harmony will have the tower available for future wireless providers to co-locate on. So additional towers in the area aren't required. Essentially, the site is been chosen because it's addressing a critical gap in wireless service in the area. And we specifically chose this ridgetop because it provides a broad overview where we can provide good coverage along Wildcat Mountain Drive and Pew Road without multiple sites to provide the same coverage area. And as staff noted in the report, we found that it was a good site because it's on a fairly level area. It's an area that will not produce a significant impact to the existing forest and rural residential uses in the area. And the other points I just wanted to quickly note regarding the generator that's proposed. We're proposing a diesel generator, and I'll be honest, I don't know whether there's 14 days of fuel in the generator. If that is a condition of approval, I'm sure we can make modifications to address that. And I will note that regarding fire safety, that I know was raised, staff mentioned, as noted, we will be providing a primary fire zone around the site. We will be providing a turnaround that is approved by the fire department for safety. And I'll note that the generator and all the equipment in the compound will be on concrete pads in a graveled compound, so it will not present a hazard. The other thing I would note, and staff did mention it, this is a passive use. So once it's constructed, we'll typically have a technician come and visit the site about once a month. So we're not going to be generating a lot of traffic. There won't be impacts in the surrounding area. And I do note that staff mentioned that there was concerns about noise. We did provide a noise report showing that we comply with county standards. I believe staff is requiring that we update that report as a condition of approval to also show that we're addressing the Oregon noise standards, and we will do that because we will comply with those standards. So we will do that as a condition of approval. And the final thing I wanted to note, and it's a mistake on my part, I intended to include a landscape design in the drawings. I apologize for doing so. We will comply with that as a condition of approval. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, provide any clarifications you may have.
Okay, thank you, sir. I don't have any questions at this point. Is there anybody else who'd like to say anything about this application in support, in opposition, or with questions or concerns? And I have Pat Erdenberger, if I'm pronouncing that name.
Get myself off of mute.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, I'm Pat Erdenberger. I'm the chair of the Hoodland CPO. We're adjacent to Firwood. We're quite happy to see another cell tower. Ours, unfortunately, runs out of fuel after 24 hours. So in the event of the variety of disasters that can happen here, we may not be able to use our cell phones after 24 hours. Bridges may be out. In the event of an earthquake, with a fire, we may have to go in one direction or another, or no direction at all. So it's become an issue with the Mount Hood Corridor Wildfire Partnership, which is federal, state, county fire and disaster management, and the CPOs and HOAs in the area. Firwood CPO, I know, attends those. I know that they are concerned about evacuation, about communication. So I guess my big thumbs up to Senior Planner Fields and her folks in the planning department is, yes, 2 weeks could be the amount of time that people may be stranded without any other means of communication. To emphasize this, our group at Hoodland we are creating a Hoodland emergency communication network using little GMRS phones where we can contact ham operators who would then be able to reach globally to get assistance. And that's all well and good. But we all know any plan for disasters needs a backup. And so I would stress the value and the importance of as long a period of fueling that cell tower as possible. I know the folks at the Furwood CPO are concerned about that. And if they're on the line, please jump in. And that's all I have to say. Thank you, Mr. Turner. Thank you,
Thank you,
Mr.
ma'am.
Unger, my good friend Darcy Reinhardt, and thank you, Joy Fields.
Mr. Murphy has his hand up.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I did send in a written testimony. Good morning, Joy. Good morning, Darcy. I'm a familiar face with Clackamas County. I'm a very active community volunteer. I'm also part of the Mount Hood Corridor Wildfire Partnership that formed when we had the fire in the Bull Run area. We were lacking communication on whether or not we were to evacuate. And we had no cell communication due to the shutdown because of the public safety power shutoff. This is a big concern. Our cell tower, as Pat had just described, only has a 24-hour supply of fuel. When I reviewed the plans that you're working with today, I did not see a fuel tank in the plot plan, and that brought concern. Is there any fuel storage? It shows a generator, but it does not show any fuel. I've taken part in the Clackamas County hazard mitigation plan update and the state's hazard mitigation plan update. Communication is one of the most important factors to be restored after a natural disaster. The Mount Hood corridor is exposed to multiple types of disaster. Wildfire is just one of them. So I have to ask, is cell communication a necessity or is it a luxury? If we do not require the fuel, then I'm looking at cell communication as a luxury. We must have another form that we're going to rely upon during a disaster. So I please ask Clackamas County to require this as a condition in your recommendation for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Is there anybody else who'd like to say anything about this application? Please raise your hand now. Seeing anybody? Ms. Fields, anything further from the county? Okay. Mr. Unger, anything further from the applicant?
No, the only thing I point out to Mr. Murphy's comments, the diesel generator that's being proposed has a self-contained fuel tank inside the generator. There's not a separate generator. There's not for this model of generator. That's why you don't see a big separate tank next to it. The only other point that I would bring up that I missed earlier was staff mentioned the possibility of expanding the compound. I'm confident that we can demonstrate that we can meet the county's fire safety requirements within the existing 5550 and still provide an adequate fire safety zone around it. So I don't believe that the compound needs to be increased at this time as long as we can demonstrate that we meet the standards for fire safety.
My understanding, what staff was suggesting was if a larger compound is needed, to accommodate the fuel tank for a generator, a larger fuel tank for the generator, or future co-location, that the conditions should allow that. It doesn't require it. So I think that can't hurt to add a condition allowing that, but it's up to the applicant to determine if it's needed or not. That just gives you more flexibility.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay. Does the applicant have any objection to the recommendation that you provide a 14-day fuel supply? The code doesn't specifically require it, but it arguably falls within some of the approval criteria that.
Right. I don't have an immediate I don't have an immediate concern, but I would like the opportunity to provide a written response to that
Yeah, okay.
after I talk with our folks.
Would you include new evidence or just written argument? Because if you're going to provide new evidence, I have to give everyone a chance to respond, hold it open for a longer period, the record open for a longer period for everyone to respond to that evidence. If it's just argument, the applicant.
Just argument.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. With that, I'm going to close the hearing. I'm going to hold the record open for 1 week. Let me grab my calendar. Today is the 27th, so we'll hold it open for 1 week until April 3rd for the applicant alone to submit a final written argument without any new evidence. I'll try and get my decision out by the 17th of April. And the applicant's final argument has to be physically received by the county by 4 p.m. on the 3rd of April. And then, as I said, I'll issue my decision within about 2 weeks after that. By the 17th, I will send my decision to the county. The county will send it to parties of record. So anybody who's testified up to this point, orally or in writing, will be sure to receive a copy of my decision. And if anybody wants to get a copy that hasn't testified, they can contact Ms. Fields. But that concludes our hearing for today. Thank you all. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.